What is up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of BHR. This is Paul.
This is Patrick.
And I hope everyone's having another great week. We are on time this week for the first time in, I think almost in a month. But things are going a lot better. Things are going a lot smoother. So they're going to smooth out before we hit our rough patch in August. But
our rough patch actually starts not next week. Well, potentially next weekend, but for sure the weekend after, because I will be out of town and I won't be back till Tuesday.
Right. Yep. Yeah. And so that'll cause some issues, and then me getting ready and moving. It's gonna be a little bit crazy, but we'll see what we can put out. Also, I'd like to note that we are planning on doing a little bit of a content, not necessarily a content shift, but how we are releasing these might be changing slightly in the near future. But we'll keep you guys posted on that. It's going to be really fun, really exciting, and you guys might get to see our beautiful faces here in the near future. But talking about rough patches and everything, Williston has been on quite a rough patch in the last couple of weeks. We had that one shooting outside of Super 8 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, that one.
And that was pretty nasty.
That one was just really weird. I remember seeing just a photo on Facebook of somebody posting all the police cars outside the Super 8, and they're like, well, something's going down here. And then I think maybe an hour or two later, the Herald posted an article about a shooting.
Yep. And then there was actually another shooting in Williston.
Not even a week later.
Yeah, It was actually, I think, it might have been around the time our last podcast was posted. I think it actually was the next or that
next
day.
Morning. The next morning, because.
Mm-hmm. So there was another shooting. It occurred what street was it at? It wasn't. It was
on do they call it an expressway, or is it just 26th Street technically?
Is that 26th?
No, the West Dakota Parkway.
Yeah, West Dakota
Parkway and Box Elder Street. So right by the Sears here in town.
Yep. Yeah, and so that was done by a young man. His name is Hendricks. And so he shot at this car, or he did a drive-by shooting. I think that's what happened. He did a drive-by shooting, injured at least one that I know of. And then he drove his vehicle out to what's that gas station?
Loves. Loves? Okay, I was going to say it was either Loves or Pilot.
And then he set his vehicle on fire. And then later that day, he ended up killing himself. I mean,
why would you set your vehicle on fire?
Right. Well, I mean, he had no intent on escape. I mean, in evidence, right?
Have they reported at all why?
No,
any of this happened? It just seems weird that there's not much information out there.
Not that I know of. I mean, it could be drug related. It could be all different types of things.
Yeah, it's just weird that they're not really releasing any information.
That's what I would suspect, that he would why he would burn his vehicle is just other evidence of whatever,
Yeah.
Be it drugs or even him firing his gun residue.
See, that was the weird thing too. Is there's no really reason that they explained, why there was gunfire.
And maybe he just lost all hope,
Yeah.
and just killed himself afterwards. So
yeah. I mean, that part I'm not really, concerned about finding out why he killed himself. I mean, he probably thought he killed someone. He shot at two people.
Right.
So
yeah. I mean, it's just crazy though that this is happening. If you read the Williston Herald at all, which I'm sure a lot of you don't, the Williston Herald reports that the oil field is just going crazy all the time. It's always the oil field hangs on to 1 million barrel production yet again, and things are taking off in the oil field. And I feel like we can kind of contradict that. It's not that it's taking off. It's a plateau. It's not going skyrocketing back to where it was back, 4 years ago, whatever.
No, I still work in an oil-related job, and things have definitely picked up substantially from where they were.
Right.
But it's not, when did things start slowing down, the end of 2014?
Yeah.
Yeah, so anything prior to that, it's not anywhere near that again.
Right, yeah, it's not like the old boomtown where we're expecting to see New York Times reporters and all of that, Washington Post reporting on us again.
I haven't looked recently, but I'm pretty sure I heard maybe a week or two ago that oil is right around $40 a barrel again.
Yeah.
And as far as standards are around here, that's not much.
No. I mean, I think for Williston to go absolutely nuts all over again, we're gonna have to see oil go back to $100. Then Williston will blow up and it will be insane all over.
Well, and I even when things started slowing down, the talk around my area was that if it hits $70 a barrel, it's game on.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that too.
Rigs will be flying up
with how the oil field is kind of reacting right now to like $40 to $50 range. I could definitely see $70 oil making Williston go pretty crazy. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's still, like I said, I still don't think it'll be like how it was, but it's gonna definitely be a very busy town again. And things have been picking up, and it seems like the crime right now is staying high, even though our oil is like middle of the road.
Well, and for the most part, it feels like since the oil field kind of slowed down around here, that the crime rate, at least how it was reported, there was kind of a lull there for quite a while. Mm-hmm. And now it just seems like with these last 6 months, it's just been one ridiculous story after another.
Yeah, it's nonstop. Well, and the one thing I've noticed is since the oil field left, the theft and drug crimes, you hear a lot more about both of those.
Theft immediately after things died because people were trying to get out of town. They were trying to do whatever they could to get back home.
Yep. And then now there's so many drugs, and it's having that oil field, that boom occur. It definitely caused an influx of drugs and people that distribute narcotics, it seemed like, in this area. So like that is definitely a downside to that boom. Is I think it brought a lot of drugs that we're not used to in this area up here, such as like heroin. I mean, I don't remember heroin at all before the boom, as far as it being a big thing in this area. And now I'm pretty sure it's running rampant in Williams County, at least, and I'm sure almost all of North Dakota.
I know a couple people that got into the dark side of drugs during the oil boom, and I asked them about heroin, and they said that it was never here. Like, if they wanted it, they couldn't have found it,
right?
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I just think it's weird that it's after the oil boom is when it starts showing up really heavily.
Yeah. Yep. Well, it's all part of the heroin epidemic in our country, And how do you?
That is true. It's not just here.
Yeah. How do you go about stopping something like that? I mean, I have no clue. And then how do you even point blame? Like, there is the medical field that they went real happy with prescribing pills, but even that, though, you still, like, one thing that we've talked a lot about on our podcast is personal responsibility. Mm-hmm. And it's like, the doctors prescribed a lot of medication, a lot of painkillers, but it's still not every single person that was prescribed.
There's definitely a lot of blame on big pharmaceutical companies and doctors on that end, but they don't get 100%. But there are definitely cases of people that, had they not been excessively prescribed pain medication, probably never would have went down that road.
Right. Yeah, but they still made that choice, though. That's where, like, our whole personal responsibility. In my eyes, it's like you still make that decision to, like, push it from your pain pills to using heroin, which it's just such a crazy jump, But
I mean, yes, it is a decision, but once you've become hooked on an opiate, it's going to be very hard for your brain to not want to make that jump. You're going to be looking for whatever you can get your hands on.
Right. Yep. Which is just sad. It's sad all around, but how do we go about fighting it, Another thing that's going a little bit nuts in North Dakota, or not nuts, is our drought. Like, we haven't gotten any real rain at all this summer, it seems like. I mean, we've had little bits of rain here and there, but nothing.
It seems like before this year, at least the last couple years, pretty much, instead of, getting April showers bring Mayflowers, like May, June, one of those 2 months, it usually rains almost for a solid, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Like, that's all it does. A little bit of a gap there. And this year, we just haven't had hardly any rain.
Right.
I think I could probably count the number of thunderstorms we've had.
Yeah, and there was a thunderstorm last week, and it just missed town, and it's like, that would have been nice to get the rain from it.
Out at my work, it didn't miss us. We caught the edge of it, but it just started downpouring out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Good thunderboom, gone in less than 5 minutes.
Yeah. And we need to get some moisture on the ground. I don't know. I think we talked a little bit about it, but the Hedricks building that started on fire.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's amazing that didn't jump around to other buildings. So it
I'm still mind blown to that. I mean, that's an amazing job done by our fire department.
Right, with our drought that we had. I mean, that's amazing that they were able to save some of the items, some of the big items in the building, and then the building is done for though.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't jump and it didn't move around at all, which with our drought going on, that is very, very impressive. But I could see that something like that happening again if with this drought, just a terrible fire. I know that there's some fires over in eastern Montana,
mm-hmm.
and we're getting some residual smoke and everything like that. But
how that fire burned, you could definitely blame some of the drought on that, but they said they'll never know for sure what 100% caused that fire, but I don't think the fire starting itself can be blamed on the drought.
Right. No. But, I mean, any little thing, like, it's not just the grass or the dirt that gets dried out, it's the wood in your homes,
mm-hmm.
and so it mm-hmm. makes everything very, very susceptible to being lit on fire, you know.
Well, and one of the big issues with that building is that, it's a big concrete building. Mm-hmm. It was built before air conditioning, and it was meant to keep in the cool air the way it was built, just be kind of like insulated.
Yeah.
And that caused that fire to burn that much hotter too.
Yeah.
So it worked the exact opposite. It turned it into an oven.
Yep.
And that's one of the reasons that was reported why they had to just let it burn is because they couldn't send anybody in there.
Right. Yeah. Just too hot. Yikes. That is insane. But like I said, I think that we could see another pretty bad fire, at least around town. I hope not, but yeah, I think that we could see definitely some more fires.
Well, the big problem is if we do finally get a thunderstorm, like a good thunderstorm,
mm-hmm.
with how dry everything is, a lightning strike could just
the trees, tree, house, different, it could get nasty. So brace yourselves,
Well, hopefully, if the pattern hopefully gets back on track here for how it's been the last couple of years, we see some pretty nasty thunderstorms in the end of August, beginning of September.
Yeah.
So at that point, most of the crops and everything are already...
Oh, they're already screwed right now.
Yeah, they're already screwed, but hopefully, for the sake of just getting everything a little precipitation...
I know our state has had to do some emergency funding for, like, the cattle farmers and everything even, mm-hmm. because the hay, everything is shot, and so it's just nuts. But this drought's still going on, and some people will point at it and say climate change, whatever, global warming, and there's all different types of cycles that go on, and it just sucks that we have a drought. That's the reality.
That's always my argument is, if this was the first ever drought, I would definitely say, global warming, we need to jump on board. But the Earth has a natural cycle, and we've been here for so little time actually measuring it that there's no way of knowing for sure if it's natural or if it's something we're doing.
Well, and I know that we are spraying chemicals up in clouds to try to encourage rain.
And, I've heard of that.
Yeah.
I was watching a story on YouTube many years ago about they did that in England.
Yeah,
they had some kind of drought or something over there, and they did that, and it caused flooding.
Yeah. Wow. I hope we get some rain soon, though, just to kind of put that fire out of different fires out of the option there. Now to kind of move away from our local news, little talks there. Big thing in national news this last week was John McCain and brain cancer. Did you hear about that?
I did. When John McCain ran for president, I wasn't really paying any attention to politics.
Yeah.
So I don't really know much about the guy.
Mm-hmm.
But I saw a lot of the hate that people were saying.
Yeah.
Good, he's just a horrible person and all this stuff.
Yeah.
I was never able to find anything like that he said that was really out of line. Even when he was running for president, there's a clip that I found where he was saying that Barack Obama was a really good guy, and if he became president, you guys shouldn't be worried.
Right? Yeah, he was defending his opponent in the presidential election.
I mean, obviously anybody could cherry pick a bunch of clips, but I think the guy that would say that in the middle of an election, I just find it hard to believe that he's as horrible a person as what people are saying to him.
And then like that lack of sympathy, the guy just went through brain surgery. He had the tumor removed. The part that sucks is that it is fatal. Like he bought some time with having surgery, but
what they said is within 36 months it'll come back.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Like, so he bought potentially 3 years, and that's it. I mean, that is insane. That's incredibly sad. And I know that he's been on the beating end of both Republicans and Democrats in the past. I mean, for either being too right, too left, a lot of criticisms. Even President Trump criticized John McCain during this last presidential election about him being a war hero, because there's a lot of controversy behind his time in as a prisoner of war during Vietnam, I believe. There was some controversy behind that, where was he actually mistreated as much as what was said, or did he give information, whatever. I know there's a lot of talk on that.
My real question would be who was holding him prisoner?
The Viet Cong.
I can't imagine they were treating him well.
Right. But if he worked with them, and I know there's some stories that you can find and look up where some people came back from Vietnam and they said that they hated John McCain because of certain XYZ issues, So, but either way, though, for the most part, he is considered a war hero. And so not only he's a war hero senator that was just diagnosed with brain cancer and had brain surgery, and then there's people that are taking politics to this extreme level, and they can't set that aside and look at him as a human. They still want him. They're still wishing for his death. And I mean, it just shows how terrible politics have gotten in the last couple of years. I mean, it's insane. Like there is evil, toxic humans on both sides of the fence, and they come out of the woodworks during this time.
Well, what was it, like 2 months ago? I think it was New York. There was a bunch of like Republicans practicing for a softball game, and some dude just came out and opened fire.
Yep. Yeah, and he asked someone before he opened fire, is it the Republicans or the Democrats practicing? And the person said, "Oh, that's the Republican team." And then he went out and opened fire on them. I mean,
just because they're Republicans.
Yep. Yeah, like the guy obviously had some mental issues, but I mean, and then you look back even a little bit farther, and there was a lot of people like to use this guy as like he was an alt-righter. When you look at that guy that stabbed people on the bus, stabbed people on the bus in state of Washington, and he was saying that he was a patriot and all of that. Like the media initially, like they all said that he was this alt-right, this conservative. But then if you went onto his Facebook page, he was a Bernie Sanders supporter. So it's like,
well, that's the problem now, is that term has gotten thrown around so much that it's just lost all meaning.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm not going to say it's lost all meaning, because to an extent, if you label someone alt-right, it's obviously you're just trying to defame them.
Right, in some way, yeah.
It's just, it seems like anymore now, anybody on the left side of the spectrum that's really aggressive, they throw that term against anyone that either goes against them or just doesn't follow their beliefs.
Right. And don't forget, you're a racist, sexist, bigot. Like, I mean, if you don't agree with their ideology, you are all of those things. The big key phrases.
Well, it's just like that article we were looking at before we started recording today. That CNN reporter that spoke out against Linda Saussure.
Yeah,
because she was supporting the Women's March was supporting.
I can't remember the woman.
That lady. But in the 70s, she killed a cop, and then she was broken out of prison.
Yeah,
then she fled to Cuba.
The woman that the Women's March was celebrating her victories as defending feminism, was a domestic terrorist that's now hiding in Cuba. I mean, that's wanted by the FBI. Like,
and because he questioned what they were supporting, he suddenly becomes labeled alt-right when in all reality he is the opposite of what would be considered alt-right.
He finally, like, I mean, even Democrats, right? Even Democrats can get sick of this absolute craziness going on, and that's a perfect example of it. They're upholding someone that killed a police officer, is wanted by the FBI, and has fled the country many years ago. It's like, and that's the Women's March. I mean, like, yeah, they go on and they say that they're like, oh, what she did for feminism. It's like, well, but hang on a second here. Like, your movement is celebrating this person. Like, it's you should ignore the fact that that she did anything good because of how terrible she was, and that she's still a wanted criminal. And I mean, like, that right there goes to show you exactly that the Women's March is not about women. It is not. It is it has its political agenda. It's in a very left-leaning organization, and they'll support anybody that hates this country. It seems like. I mean, especially in that scenario right there. She's living in Cuba. I mean, that's just ridiculous to me.
Which is, I don't know. It gives me a little bit of hope though to see somebody on that side, especially that's a part of big media.
Yeah.
Finally, somebody to stand up and go,
right.
I don't care if this fits your narrative. It's not right.
Yeah. Yep. And I hope that we see more of that. And I think there's a lot of people that are like, that were Democrat or like that moderate Democrats, right? Mm-hmm. That feel very, very secluded, right? Mm-hmm. Because it's like, you don't want to be a part of this absolute craziness. And so it kind of pushes you more to the right or to the middle, you know? I mean, you can't bandwagon the entire group anymore. And if you do, you're really accepting a lot of batshit crazy people on your side. I mean, no.
Well, going back to like the alt-right thing, I started reading Milo Yiannopoulos' new book.
Yeah.
And he kind of makes a good point that because of all the people calling the alt-right Nazis and all these peoples, the group has now become an actual, like, white supremacist group. Like, the white supremacists have moved into positions in this group now.
Right.
He kind of thinks tries to say that it's because of them saying over and over again that it is these things.
Yeah.
And to an extent, I believe that, but I don't know if there's any proof behind that.
Yeah. No, you can't. I don't even think you could find proof necessarily to defend that position.
But it does make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
To say that, you know, you call something so much that it becomes that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I mean, it just goes back to those big keywords, like, and right away, the alt-right movement became the beating, you know, the crash test dummy or whatever for media, because the big news agencies knew that they couldn't get away with calling all Republicans racist, sexist, bigots. And I remember watching that transition occur, right? Like, so at first, the first like 2 days after the election, they called all Republicans those words, you know, racist, sexist, bigots. And then it's like they probably noticed their ratings dropping and people were being very critical of them. And then it's like, well, shoot, we need to call something that is conservative in connection, all of these words. And then boom, they find their target, and it was the alt-right. It was Milo,
which is funny because the alt-right hates Milo,
right? Which I still find so interesting. Like,
they still push that narrative,
yeah.
Even though the alt-right has spoken out about that, how much they hate Milo.
Yeah, and really, when you consider he's like everything that they say about the alt-right movement, it being, you know, sexist, racist, bigoted, and then you consider who Milo is as a person, that he is a gay. Jewish-born Catholic. Yeah, like, it just seems,
who's only interested in black men.
Right. It's so funny when they try to say that he's this leader of the alt-right, and like, in a sense, like, I look at it as like, yeah, he is a leader of a different political group that is in the conservative party. Right?
That would be an alternative to the right, but by no means are they labeled that.
Like, he gives a group of people that are gay and conservative, like, a voice, which is awesome. And he's also gotten a lot of conservatives to be like, yeah, it's fine that you're gay, which that's very cool that party has like kind of adapted, because he is such a figure for it. You know?
Well, that's what's weird to me too, is after gay marriage was legalized, I don't feel like the conservative side of the spectrum really cares about people being gay anymore.
They still
not
do. They
as
still
openly.
Do. Yeah, they still do though, a lot, a big time.
Yeah.
It took the Supreme Court to make that happen, and that to me that's like a very big sign that they had no expectations of that being legalized through the normal path.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a good thing that they did it, because just do it, get it over with, like just be done with it. Let people do whatever they want to do and kind of be happy,
I've never had a problem with it. It doesn't affect me, so it's not my problem.
Exactly. But I mean, it's just things are still going nuts. Like another article that I just read was old reality TV star Kat Von D. She owns a company based out of California. Like I think it's like a makeup company or something, right? And she was holding a competition on Instagram. Well, this person won the competition, and they went back through her like previous Instagram posts, and there was a pro-Trump support pro-Trump post, and they like banned her. Like she wasn't allowed. Like she won, but they took it away from her.
Mm-hmm.
They took the prize away from her because of her support for Trump.
And that's ridiculous.
And it was like her art was not politically motivated.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was no politics in her art. There was no politics in this competition whatsoever. And they just took like her own personal political ideology and used it against her, like her past. Like, oh, you posted that? Nope. Could you imagine if that happens now? Like if that just becomes a standard, right? Like that they're going to go through social media. You go on for a job interview and it's like, oh, you were a Trump supporter or you were a Hillary supporter. Nope, you're not allowed here. Get out of here. I mean,
I just can't wrap my head around that, because I mean, behind closed doors, if you would have made that connection before you already announced the winner,
right,
nobody would ever know. There's no way you could, do anything about it.
Yeah.
But to already announce it and then take it back,
yeah,
making it so public,
yeah,
I can't believe it's not stirring more of the pot between, of the tension between the two parties, because that's just insane.
Yeah.
If somebody would have done that when Obama was president, well, you voted for Obama, you can't win this.
Yeah.
There would have been a riot.
Yep. Especially near the end of his presidency, there was quite a few of those riots. So, I mean, it's just goes to show you, like, this is not going to calm down, or it's not going to calm down in time. That's what I think, is that the fire is just being stoked more and more and more.
Yeah. Well, and then even on the same level as that, on the topic of Milo again, his new book, he's been posting videos he's been asking people to go into Barnes and Nobles and try and buy his book.
Yeah.
And there's, I think, 4 videos on his page where he's tried to talk to 4 separate Barnes and Nobles. None of them are carrying his book. Some of them, they're not even allowed to try and order their book.
Yeah.
And they have them just sitting in warehouses.
Yeah, and it's one of the number 1 sellers on Amazon.
Yeah, it's in the top 5 in almost every list.
Yep.
And that is so, it falls under censorship so hard. Like, I understand that Barnes & Noble is a private group, but don't accept the book and then refuse to sell it. Say, no, I'm sorry, we will not carry your book.
Yeah.
That, I can get on board with that.
Yeah.
But to actually physically have copies of the book and not, let people buy them.
Right. It's very unusual.
Extremely sketchy.
Yeah. Yep. And it goes back to like in my head, I kind of always have to go back to the images of people burning books and whatnot at UC Berkeley, and like them calling the right fascists, and it's like they're the Antifa, they're the anti-fascists, and it's like they're the ones that are trying to censor other people, they're the ones trying to silence other political views, and it's I can't remember. There was a some philosopher back during the time period of like the rise of fascism that said that the next fascists will appear as anti-fascists. Mm-hmm. They will be the ones trying to fight against something, and it's in my eyes, like, this is exactly what is still going on. Like, whether you like it or not, there is a movement out there that is trying to censor speech, that is trying to censor this political ideology, mainly just because they don't agree with it.
Well, and what's crazy to me is, I started to kind of as we stopped talking about it as much because they weren't, really doing as much,
Mm-hmm.
I started to realize, okay, this group is very small. They're just getting a lot of attention.
Yeah.
But now, after seeing what was going on in Germany,
Mm-hmm.
these small groups are all over the world.
Yeah. Yep.
So for those of you that don't know, there was the what was that conference called? The Summit Conference.
Oh yeah.
In Hamburg, Germany.
Yep.
And there was a protest going on that turned into a riot.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw video clips of this riot, and people were walking down the street breaking glass, breaking windows out of cars and throwing lit flares in the cars,
Yep.
like just destroying this place.
Yep.
And there was a video I saw, and there was just smoke billowing from a huge majority of the downtown, and it just
Mm-hmm.
blew my mind because it's just a group that is preaching against all of these hateful things, but then they're inciting violence.
Yeah, and they themselves are very hateful people. Like, it's that whole idea of punch a Nazi in the face. It's like, well, what's your definition of a Nazi, right? Like, I mean, like, they kind of bend their definition to it being acceptable to punch someone that is on the other political side of them.
Well, that's the thing, too, is Richard Spencer, I think he's like the head of the alt-right.
Yeah.
Like, he is a Nazi. He is a white supremacist, and
Yep.
somebody punched him in the face.
Yep.
Even though I don't agree with anything he says, don't think people should be walking around punching him in the face.
Like, if you are talking about bad ideas, right? Like, if you go out and you give a speech, like if me and you, we go out and we give a conference or we hold a gathering, right? And our ideas are total crap. People will tell us like, hey, no, like this is dumb, this is terrible, you guys are spewing, toxicity, and it's like that's the whole benefit of free speech is like, oh, that person out there talking, wow, they are terrible. Even like that guy that's that's the head of the alt-right, that is an actual Nazi. It's like, well, you're a really bad person. Like, I mean, and they make it obvious by having this free speech, but by censoring and by like limiting access to them talking at events and everything, it's like all you're doing is making more people go to it or find it in another route,
Well, and that's one of the things I thought about Milo is, I mean, he definitely attracts a large amount of people, but because of all the negative press, because of all the people protesting him, he's driven people to listen to him.
Yeah, that's why his book is the #1 bestseller.
I haven't finished the book, but what I've read is pretty tame.
Yeah,
like I expected so much more harshness to come out of that. But it's him actually sitting down and being an intellectual.
Yeah.
Like, there's jokes in there, and obviously he's not taking himself too seriously. But the way that he is represented in the media does not reflect his actual belief system.
No. And I mean, like I believe he's like an Oxford dropout.
Yeah.
So I mean, like he's not a dumb person. He's not like he portrays himself as a troll, and he is very good at it. But that's not who he actually is. Like that's not the totality of Milo. Very, very intelligent and probably someone that analyzes a lot of different situations. And probably like that's the way I view it. Is like he sat down and analyzed the current events, and he's like, well, this is where I fall, right? And then what you do is later on you reanalyze and adjust yourself accordingly. Because when you look at earlier Milo, right? Before he went wild, before he started to gain fame, he was more very, very tame. He was more on like the left-leaning side of things. And then all of a sudden he kind of reevaluated him, and he's like, wait a second, I'm going to be more on the right-leaning because XYZ. Like this is why, like him being a gay person, this is why I am more of a conservative than anything. And it's interesting because it's like he views the conservatives as like the protectors of gays, right? Because there's that that terrorist ideology. There's the just that all of that wildness going on out there. But the terrorist factions, right? Like ISIS, they want to kill homosexuals. That is a major thing.
And yet, there's so many people from the LGBTQ community actually supporting a lot of, I don't want to say radical Muslims, but a lot of like the immigration and stuff. When even the people that aren't coming over here to, cause any problems, they still don't like gay people.
No, yeah. No, absolutely not. And it's just, another one of those like what's going on here type of moments, and I don't know, like as time will tell, I think we're gonna look back on this time and just be like, yep, this was the beginning of complete and utter chaos in our society.
One, I think we talked about this either last week or the week before, like just Europe as an example, specifically over in England.
Yep.
They have completely open borders and they've been having nothing but trouble.
Yeah. Yep.
I think the last like 3 or 4 terrorist attacks have all been in London.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they've been terrible. There's been a spree of acid attacks. I don't know if they were necessarily terrorists.
The argument behind that is because they don't have any guns.
Right.
So people, when they go to rob and loot and stuff, they threaten with acid.
Yeah.
Because it's cheap. It's extremely cheap to get, and it's more threatening because you, instead of threatening your life, they're threatening you to live with a disformity.
Oh yeah.
You know, and I just.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely terrible. I mean, for them to attack someone with acid, and it's like you're gonna live that victim is gonna live the rest of their lives with that disformity, and the person that does the attack, actually over in Europe, they don't count acid as like a deadly weapon, so they get off with a lesser punishment than if they used a knife or a bar or anything like. I mean, it's nuts.
And that's insane, because if somebody did that over here, that would be like a terrorist attack.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Even if you did it to one person, it would be considered terrorism, and you would be gone.
Yep.
You would be in prison for the rest of your life.
Yeah. But another really big thing that just recently occurred, this last Friday afternoon, a new communications director of the White House was appointed. Scaramucci, I might be butchering his name, but Scaramucci was a Wall Street executive, and now he's the head of the communications group at the White House, which is kind of weird. Like, I'll be honest, like, I thought it was there's that whole swamp thing, right? Do you remember that from the election? Like, drain the swamp.
I remember hearing it, but I never really paid attention to it or really looked into what it meant.
Yeah, and
like I guess on the surface, I always thought it meant, get rid of like the fat belly politicians that are there to just collect a check.
Right, and like I don't know, I kind of feel like inviting, like President Trump has his background in finances and in real estate. But, like, inviting a Wall Street executive in to be the communications director, to me, is kind of weird.
Well, I mean, a lot of the positions that he's filled have been extremely weird.
Yeah.
Our Secretary of Education, for one.
Yeah.
I can't believe that actually got passed.
And Rex Tillerson, our Secretary of State. I mean, he was one when I heard that he was appointed. I'm like, that is really weird. He did not have a background. He didn't have he had foreign connections and everything, but like you're the Secretary of State. Like, you are one of the representatives of the United States to foreign countries.
Paul Ryan, a huge conflict of interest.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
I mean, it's just...
No, it's very unusual. But the other kind of interesting part with the appointment of Scaramucci is the resignation of Spicer. Like,
I've seen that coming.
Mm-hmm.
From the beginning, he just seemed like he was either in over his head or he just wasn't capable of doing the job. Like, he always seemed a little off, or like he was just overwhelmed.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like his outlash, like, as like the press secretary, he should I
understand that is an extremely hard job.
Yeah,
I would never want that job.
But he would lash out. Like, that was a part where it's like you're making a bad situation worse because now you're giving them more ammo, right? Mm-hmm. And yeah, he would just freak out all the time. And yeah, Saturday Night Live made a massive skit out of it.
Honestly, none of them were even that funny. It's funnier to watch him than it is to actually watch Saturday Night Live.
And it's crazy. Like, I feel like he was a poor choice to begin with, but man, he made a lot of things worse. And it's good that he has resigned, but it is kind of interesting. Like, I think that we're going to hear a lot more about it. I think that this is just the the tip of the iceberg when it comes to Spicer's resignation, this guy's appointment, Scaramucci's appointment, and all of that. I think that's going to be one of the main topics of this next week. And then I know that Trump Jr. and another, I think like Donald Trump's son-in-law, they're going to be interviewed by Congress. And I mean, this is, I think that's going to be under closed doors though. Closed doors interview on those two. I'm not sure though.
That's always so weird to me. I know that's a huge argument a lot of people have with the behind closed doors thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can understand it to an extent because obviously there's certain information that shouldn't be let out to everybody. Because you don't know necessarily what they're going to talk about, especially if there's an ongoing investigation.
Yeah.
But I just feel like there's so much of it.
Well, and I don't know, like I have mixed feelings about it, but I also like around the classified information and like why they have closed doors interviews and interrogations and everything. But then my history side of me, the history buff inside of me kicks in, and I'm like, well, hang on a second here. Like, so when our founding fathers got together and wrote the Constitution, you got to remember our government actually was functioning under the Articles of Confederation. There was a president, all of that. And our founding fathers got together in Philadelphia, and they locked themselves in a room. It was completely closed door. They were not allowed to talk to anybody. I don't even know if I think they could leave, but I think it was under they had to be under guard pretty much if they left and all that. And they mutinied against the Articles of Confederation. They said they walked out with our Constitution. They're like, okay, that government that's gone. This is the new government. Like, we need to have a few votes on it, but this old one is gone.
But wasn't the Articles of Confederation meant to be temporary?
No. It was what it was like a knee-jerk reaction to the extreme, like the idea of monarchy, right? Like having a very, very strong government.
Yeah.
So what they did was make an extremely weak government on purpose. They made it very, very weak. It could deal with I think it could deal with some foreign affairs, and it could set out townships, like measurement systems for measuring land, and not much more than that. I mean, like it was dead on arrival, but they made it work for a couple of years, But like that, the Constitution was written in secrecy. Everything that was agreed upon in that was all secret. So our government doing secret things, that's been kind of a tradition.
Yeah.
So I mean, but there's that part of me that like we want more information, and I don't know, like,
well, there is that sense of being entitled to that, right? Because we're taught that the government is there, for us. We control the government,
right? With
quotations.
Yeah.
So I definitely see where the entitlement to know everything that's going on comes from.
Yeah.
But at the same time, everybody needs to understand that there's information out there that not everybody should have.
Right, exactly. Like if you have worked your way up through the political process or the military process or anything, and you have the capabilities of getting that information, then you've earned your right, or you are responsible enough with that information for the most part. And yeah, like we as the people, I feel like we do get a little bit greedy, and we want to know more and more and more about our government, and that's not necessarily our job in it. Like if you want to know more about it, then join the military, or
I think one of the big
more
issues
active in government
is that all of us, including myself, you have a pretty good understanding, but everybody needs to educate themselves on how our government actually works.
Oh yeah. Well, and I think we predicted it, but the healthcare bill dying.
That was all you. I didn't know much about it. I was kind of just going off of what you said on that one. I never really had.
I knew from the get-go, because like it just barely passed Congress, and the Senate. Each one of those people are way more powerful. Like it takes a sum of, well, us being in North Dakota, we have Kramer, and then we have 2 senators. But everywhere else, they have an abundance of congressmen and only 2 senators. So, I mean,
I just think it's funny because I had asked you when we were talking about the healthcare bill, like,
Mhm.
why not just appeal?
Oh, yeah.
Appeal Obamacare.
It would be crazy.
And just go back to what it was before.
Yeah.
Why do we need something? And that's kind of what their plan was, is they want to try just appeal Obamacare and
but even that, like, there will be so much backlash, like, it's not going
and
to
take
happen.
the time to actually be
Yeah.
able to put into a bill.
They won't even, like...
It's not going to pass, but I like that decision.
Mm-hmm. But like they're not even like what I feel like the Republicans on the Hill should do is like just stop talking about it, right? Like they just deal with Obamacare for another year, right? Just deal with it. Have the people deal with it and be like, we are planning something, it is in the works, and we'll let you know when we have it our stuff a little bit more better together. I mean, because the repeal on Obamacare will fail. This repeal and replace failed. I mean, and it goes to show you once you give the government a little bit of power, it runs with it, right? And it's so hard to try to backtrack and try to go back to the way things were before. I mean, another example. I mean, yeah, it's poor for your health, but smoking is a perfect example of it, right? Mm-hmm. As time goes on, like the laws against smoking are growing and growing and growing. And it's getting to the point now where, like, are you going to even be able to smoke in public type of deal? Like, I know there's some places where they've tried to pass legislation against smoking in public. And
as a smoker, it's frustrating, but I understand it. I honestly, if at this point anymore, if they wanted to ban smoking in public, I would actually probably vote. But in favor.
But I mean, like, is that the government's role, right? Like to that level, right?
Not the national government.
Yeah,
but on a state level, yes, or even just a city level, yes.
See, and even at that, like, I feel like that's more of like a personal health thing, right? Like, educate the populace on how.
I'm not
bad
saying
it is,
ban cigarettes from being sold or bought. I'm just saying,
but that's the next step after that. Like, it's always everything when it comes to government. It snowballs, and the part that sucks about it is that it doesn't even snowball in a good way. It's never in a good way.
No, it's always just take.
Right,
take.
And then it's such a sluggish system that like any type of information that needs to get passed up the chain just fails or falls on deaf ears, right? And so you have this. Government is a big dumb like ogre, right? And it just wanders around and trips and falls on things, right? It's like, oh, it tripped, and now we have Social Security that's failing. It's a pyramid scam upside down. And then it trips and falls, and now we have healthcare that's going to fail even faster, and everything, right? So it just goes to show you that anytime government really gets involved, like, could you imagine if these people were running our jobs? Like, if we had total socialism, that, like, the government ran the markets, how much of a train wreck that would actually be. I mean, like, they can't even handle one sector. They can't handle the health sector, let alone, could you imagine if they tried to control everything that we produce?
Absolutely.
I mean, it would just be a total mess, and, I mean, I don't know. There's definitely more to come on all of that, though.
Yeah, we'll definitely stay on top of that as we hear more.
But definitely keep your eyes open and your ears ready to hear some news, because I'm sure you're going to hear a lot about Scaramucci this next week.
Yes,
and I really appreciate you guys hanging out and listening to us for another hour. So
I do want to leave on one more thing. I'm probably going to continue to bring this up until something is definite, but please take the time to educate yourself on the Net Neutrality Act. There's plenty of websites out there to help you send messages to the FCC to let them know that you support net neutrality. This is an extremely important issue, and it seems to be flying under the radar.
All right. Well, thank you guys for listening.
Thank you.